Okay, so we are Git Rekt, and we worked on the Arcos Burn Navigator, and we did a lot of different updates over the last 2 weeks. We're really excited to show you. So the first thing we did was last time when we came in, the hourly updates that you do for the patient every hour to update their urine output and fluid intake and the rate of which. That was only working for the training patient. But we were able to successfully get it working for all patients, including the real patients you make in the program, which is a major step up in our functionality because it makes it so we're almost complete with all the major stuff. However, we don't have an easy way to show you the hourly update working for the regular patient because you have to actually wait a significant amount of time because it's on the top of every hour that you do it. So just for our purposes in the demo, we'll be showing the training patients like we did last time. So the next thing we did, pull open the first one. It has a bunch of hourly updates. So in the interest of time, we created some patients already so that they actually have quite a few hourly updates already in them, so that we can display some of the major features. So I want to see the IO graphs, and let's go to the volume graph first. Okay, so for the volume graph, and we did sort of the similar updates for all three, the volume graph, the IO table, and the IO graphs. But the first thing you'll notice is that the HPV here, the hours post-burn, actually reflects the real time that the user put in for hours post-burn. So before it was always starting at 0, and we ended up making it so that whenever you input the patient as a new patient in the wizard, you can actually set when the time of the burn actually happened, and so that when you get to the hospital, obviously there's some amount of time that transpired between the time of the burn and the time you arrived at the hospital. And let's say you put 2 hours, 3 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 and 20 minutes. It'll round to the closest hour, and it'll reflect that in the initial post-burn. So that was one thing we did for all three, for the tables and the graphs. Also, we added a feature where if a doctor forgets to input an hourly update, meaning that they are just too busy and they just forget to put it in, we have this automatic feature that will put in an empty hourly update into the data. And we also don't have a way to easily show you that right now.
Actually, we do.
Oh, okay.
All right, so,
I wasn't aware of that.
So there's actually a real patient, right? And we can show that we skipped an hour, so there's an empty.
Because in ordinary circumstances, we'd have to actually wait an entire hour to simulate that. But we created a factory patient that sort of has that data already manually put in. So as you can see here, for this fluid output and this urine input, we have it as 0, and that was automatically put in. The user did not put that in themselves. They just forgot to put something in for that hour. So that was something we added. Next, I would like to see the IO graphs. Oh yeah, we're already there. Okay, so as you can see, these both fit onto one page. Before, in the last demo, you had to scroll down to see the entirety of this second graph. It was sort of cut off right here. And so we actually made it so that the size of the phone sort of gets dynamic. The actual graphs get dynamically fitted to the size of the phone. So no matter what the size of the phone, the height and width, these graphs will automatically fit perfectly onto the page. So that was one thing we added.
You want to see one that has a lot to scroll?
Oh yes, okay. So also last time we had a little bit of an issue with our scrolling in the IO graphs. And so now we have that perfectly functioning. You can see it works great.
We also deactivated all the panning in between like the tabs, so it wouldn't get confused, and it just works a lot smoother, a lot more smooth.
Exactly. Okay, one other thing that we'd like to show is that, can you go to the volume graph for me? Okay, this is another thing we added. So this area right here, this area represents our cumulative volume amount that has been accumulating over the time of the treatment. This is colored green, meaning that it's in a safe area. And so anywhere from the bottom all the way at 0 to right before the yellow line, which is the Parkland line, you're in a safe area. But as soon as you exceed, and this is your current cumulative volume, the one that's all the way to the right, that's what you're currently at for your total volume of fluid that you've given to the patient. As soon as this tip exceeds the yellow, the actual area itself will turn yellow. So let's make sure that works. We're going to add an hourly update, and we're going to give it a huge amount of fluid input so that it will for sure go past that line. So the urine output doesn't matter in this case, but for the actual infusion rate,
6,000.
that might go a little bit too far.
No, it'll be fine.
Okay, because we have different colors that have, let's see if it goes to either orange or yellow. Okay, so it stayed in the yellow range. So that means that you're sort of approaching a more dangerous level, and it also exceeded the Parkland line. But we have other thresholds that it can exceed. So if you do it again, you see these danger and warning. Those lines are going to show up as it approaches those lines. So we're going to add another update, a really large one, or possibly the same size as the previous one, I guess. It's fine. Well, I don't want to go past the orange. I want to see the orange.
No, it's going to get to the orange.
Okay. Okay.
Oh no.
We have been dealing with that issue, and we're going to fix it by next week, hopefully. We're going to track it down. Sometimes when you add an hourly update, it'll close the application, but we're going to figure that out. That's a known bug. So,
What patient was on that?
oh, yeah, we forgot which patient we were actually working in. Okay, sorry about this. We have a bunch of patients already made.
There wasn't a first one.
There it is. I
No,
believe that's the one.
that's not.
Okay. Never mind.
You guys remember?
Well,
Wasn't the first one?
maybe we haven't tried the first one.
Try the first one.
If not, we can just do it again. It's not a big deal. Okay, so yeah, that's the one we were working on. So do the hourly update. Okay, make sure you put a urine amount in as well. Okay. All right, so we put in a little bit too much for that hourly update, so it exceeded the orange line and it went all the way past the red line. So then it turns red, which just gives an explicit, it tells the user explicitly that they are in a very dangerous zone for the total amount of fluid in the time that they have had that patient. If it were below the red line but above the orange line, of course, it would be orange. But in the interest of time, I guess we'll move on. So next, oh yeah, this one was just done recently. Let's show the IO tables. So we did a bunch of updates on the IO tables, or that table. So obviously there's a lot of data in it right now because we have so many hourly updates. But if you go to the top, starting there, you'll notice that you have the actual times, then the hours post-burn. And right here, colored in green, are the actual fluids, the primary fluids that the doctor chose to use throughout the treatment. And they started out with lactate springers, and then they continued with lactate springers until the HPV4, which they actually changed their primary fluid to lactated ringers plus 5% dextrose. And so you can only choose one primary fluid at a time, but as you choose new ones, it'll actually add them to the list here. So right now we've used 4 total throughout the entire treatment. But as you use different ones, it'll start to add them to the list. But if you use the same ones over again, it won't add anymore. It'll just continue to add them throughout these rows here. And then you can have multiple additional fluids. So in blue here, we actually have first, above the blue, we have the total additional fluids, which just adds up these 4 rows. And then basically, as you start using different additional fluids, it'll start adding them to this list. And then throughout the therapy, it'll actually look for what additional fluids you actually inputted into the hourly update. And so, yeah, that's essentially it. That was in the user needs. So
can you scroll again?
Yeah.
Scroll to the tape. Yeah, I see the scroll bar.
in most situations, I don't think the doctor would use this many different fluids. So there is a lot of data in this graph. Usually there would be a lot less because the doctor would probably stick to a more uniform type of fluid, I would think.
I see.
Okay. So also, we're going to show you the test cases that we've created after we're done with all the different functionalities that we've done. But for the tables, volume graphs, and the I/O graphs, we have gotten the test coverage up to 100%. So all these different new features we've added, we've tested every single bit of it. So, so yeah, and that's good to go, and all of them are passing, but we'll show you that later. Okay, next I want to show you is that on the home page, we've added a feature in the top right corner. That button actually lets the user manually switch their patient to inactive. So you can delete your patient on the patients list and take away their data completely, or you can just put them in an inactive list, meaning you want to keep their data for future reference, but you want to make sure that they're not like under your care currently. And so if you press the inactive button, it says patient deactivated, and if you go, that's named first patient training. We now have under the archives list, so that's the active patients list up there, and this is the archived, and it was successfully added. So so that's working great. Make sure I got to everything. We fixed a bug that we found recently, where if you were to double click on certain buttons, like for instance the submit hourly update button, if you were to click on that numerous times before it actually navigated to the next page, it would actually trigger in the background that event multiple times. So like say if you were pressing submit hourly update, pressing it multiple times would end up with multiple hourly updates when you only wanted one. Well, we fixed that, so now no matter what, no matter how many times you press it, you'll only get one hourly update. So that was one thing we fixed. Also, we fixed an issue where the hourly update wizard now takes, if you go to the, this any patient will do it. If you press update. So this is a minor change. For the infusion rate here, that used to be just an infusion amount or a volume intake amount, but now we put it as a rate because that's favorable for doctors because generally they'll have a pump that goes at a certain rate so they can set it to that themselves. It's more convenient for them. So that's one thing other than everything else that we added. Let me make sure I got everything. Okay, that's about it. Let's show them the tests. But of course, there were a bunch of other little things that we did elsewhere. It's just these are the main things that we can display easily in the application. But we have 21 test suites, and we actually have 155 different tests spanning across all of our files, and we plan to add more. Jason was saying he'd like to see 200 by next week. We'll see. I don't even know if we need that many. We'll see. Are you able to see okay, Dr. Venkat?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So those are all our tests. So all of them passed, every single last one of them, all 155. Almost all of them are in the green zone, and almost all of them are 100% covered. But the one that we were going to focus on in the next iteration is the patient actions here. There was a lot of code added recently, so that's the one we're going to focus on a lot. But as for all the rest, almost every single one of them is above 90, and the vast majority is at 100. So we're looking good for the most part. I expect that we'll have time to get everything up to par. And in the next iteration, we also plan to refactor our code a lot and add comments to sections that perhaps are hard to follow, or even just to add comments in a general sense. We'll talk with the guys about it. And then a couple other small functionalities we still need to add are we need to give alert notifications when the graph area in the volume graph changes color. So you know how it changed from green to yellow to orange to red? We want to actually supplement that with an additional alert to the screen so that the doctor definitely knows that has happened, because it has to do with the safety of the patient. And so the other thing is that we want to have, you saw how the two IO graphs scroll from left to right, and there's two graphs. We were asked to have those graphs scroll in sync with each other. So as you move one graph, the other graph should scroll as well. That's one of the other functionalities we're going to add. Lastly, we're going to make it so that a patient is automatically put in the inactive list of the patient's list after 72 hours, as requested by ARCOS. After 3 days is very rare that a patient will still be in their care for burn therapy. And other than that, we're just going to find any bugs that we possibly can, and we're going to try to fix them. And hopefully have a really good app by next week. We're meeting with our sponsor this Friday. Like our typical meeting time, we meet at 9 a.m. over teleconference every other Friday. We're going to talk a little bit about our app. But they've been very happy with us. They've said that we've exceeded their expectations since the very beginning. That's an almost direct quote. We're very happy with what we've created. So yeah, that's about it, I think.
So the question I have is, you said IO graph, you want them to be synced. So when you move one and you scroll one, and on the other one should be automatically scrolled as well.
Yeah, you could show them if you want.
Yeah, I know it was scrolled independently.
Yes.
So
one scrolls and the other should scroll in exactly the same way.
Right now?
No, they should do that. That's what we're going to try to do.
Eventually. So question I want to have, the simple question is, does that what they want, or is it what you want to achieve?
It's what they want.
Oh, it's what they want.
Yes.
And another question is, as of right now, the IO table, as you scroll, I saw the scroll bar moving back and forth. If you move to the end of the table, bottom of the table, can you have something like that on the IO graph as well? I want to know how far can I move back and forth. The presence of scroll bar tells you how far I can move back and forth. That's why.
Our IO graph actually doesn't have a bar.
It's not.
It just scrolls.
I know, but it doesn't have to be a bar. But if you can create I don't know, a just indicator type of bar, and it kind of shows where the graph is at. I mean, where the graph is being shown.
We're probably going to have to look into a different scrolling library package because the current one we're using doesn't have the capabilities to do that, as far as I know. Having
said that, that's more like a want to have, and you have only 1 week left. So that's good to have, but if you cannot, don't worry about it.
This isn't in their original user needs. It's just something that they thought of on the spot. And of course, they actually told us that if you have things that you can't finish in time, it's okay. But we're going to still try in the time that we have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, good work, by the way. I've got two questions, and nothing specifically to see if you can finish it, but more of from the overall feature of the application point of view. I am not a fan at all of scrolling in general, and the reason I say that is, while scrolling is good idea on desktop applications, scrolling is not something that works effectively on devices, especially people are used to vertical scrolling, but horizontal scrolling, we want to definitely minimize it. I don't have a specific answer for it, but more of a concern. If there is a way to reduce or even eliminate horizontal scrolling, I think that would be really nice.
Do you think we should go to our sponsor and just check what they think first, or what do you think?
Yeah, and I would say it's not something you should try to fix it right now, but it is worth bringing up so that they could reconsider the design in a way that it can be made more effective. In a way, if you really think about it, it's out of sight, out of mind. If it's something that the user has to scroll to get to repeatedly, they're probably not going to do that too often.
Yeah, it's true, but the only other option would be to take away data as it becomes older, which we believe that the doctor may want to see all of the data throughout the entire therapy, because it's a very short therapy in general. It's only about 24 hours on average or less. We could definitely pass it by our sponsor, of course, give a question in the next demo.
The other more important question, I think, is you mentioned that if doctor does not fill in the data on the hour, you are filling in dummy data. So I guess that brings up two questions. You know, they will be able to go back and update and edit it. Are they allowed to go back and change previously entered data?
Not
if they have entered it
currently.
once?
Not currently, but that is something that is on our list of things to do, and I forgot to add it to our list of things to talk about today, but yes, that is something that we have planned to do. We just are trying to find the time to do it. Were you about to say something?
And the second thing is, when a doctor has not input the data for either an hour or two or more, when they come into the application, does it guide them through to say, here are the pieces missing, enter them, rather than they having to go in and hunt down what is missing?
That's a very good point to bring up. We should add that. And we only have a week left, but we will definitely try our best to look into that. That's a great idea.
Updates, it divides it by the hours that you missed, right? So if it's like 60 or 80 minutes or whatever, that's how it does it. It isn't necessarily like, oh, you have to do it at exactly an hour.
Because the patients are on a pump, so if you put 500 mils an hour, if it's been 2 hours, then the hourly fluid update should automatically compensate, should put in 1,000 milliliters total for those 2 hours. And then same for the urine output, like the nominal urine output's 50 milliliters. So if it's been 2 hours since you've done the last update, then you should put in 100 for that update.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
But yeah, we're just about finished, so we're reaching an end. So we're very happy. Any other questions?
None from me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.